Today, we are digging into it has to be one of the most audacious and expensive bets in modern corporate history.
Oh, easily.
We're talking about Microsoft's all-in commitment to artificial intelligence under CEO Satya Nadella.
And it's so much more than just a bet.
Yeah.
It's really an existential declaration. The source material we have makes that crystal clear.
How so?
Well, Nadella has completely restructured the company around this core belief that AI is, and this is a quote, the last fundamental technology platform that will be invented by humankind.
Wow. The last one.
Exactly. So if you believe that, then controlling this era is just non-negotiable. This isn't some gradual pivot. It's immediate. It's all-consuming. And the financial commitment is just staggering. It's all designed to get market dominance, really at any cost.
And when we say cost, we are talking about tens of billions of dollars. Billions, just for infrastructure. Plus, this massive organizational restructuring it rivals anything Microsoft has done in its 50-year history.
And they're pushing AI into every single product.
It's a really compelling story, and it's full of these contradictions. They announce record profits, and then in the same breath, massive layoffs, exhilarating growth, but it's shadowed by these just immense infrastructure costs.
And that's exactly our mission today. We're going to unpack this high-stakes gamble for you. We've pulled together the strategic playbooks. We've dissected the financial metrics, both internal and external.
We're talking CapEx figures, revenue run rates, and those almost unbelievable competitor costs.
Right. And we're also going to look at the very real friction Microsoft is facing right now, getting big companies to adopt this stuff at scale, and maybe most importantly, prove the return on that investment.
So the core tension of this deep dive is really this. Is this unprecedented investment a stroke of long-term strategic genius? Is this the move that's going to define the next decade of Microsoft?
Or, on the other hand, are the financial pressures and, the user backlash, are those signs that this whole bet is fueled more by hype than by any kind of sustainable market reality?
Let's jump in and look at the foundation first.
Okay, so let's unpack the strategic foundation. Microsoft is trying to win the enterprise market, but it's not just with cutting-edge models. It's with structure and governance.
Yes, that's the whole pitch. The sources lay out this highly disciplined, almost textbook approach that they insist is required for any organization.
Any organization.
Doesn't matter if you're a small startup or a massive public sector entity. They say you need this kind of planning to successfully deploy AI. They've distilled it down into 4 core pillars.
And that structured planning, that's their key to getting big, often regulated companies on board.
Exactly. They argue that if you follow these steps, you move away from just, ad hoc experimentation where you're just dropping models into your workflow.
Right.
And you move toward a documented AI strategy that produces consistent, faster, and this is the key word, auditable outcomes. That predictability, that's what CIOs will pay for.
Auditable is definitely the word. So what are these 4 core areas you have to define up front? The first pillar is identifying measurable AI use cases. And the message here is really clear. You have to define the business outcome first, before you even look at the models or the tools.
So figure out the why before you pick up the wrench.
Precisely. They recommend isolating processes that have measurable friction things where AI can demonstrably improve costs or speed or quality. Think about automating data-heavy financial reports. If the problem isn't measurable, you can't justify the solution.
Makes sense. So what comes after the use case?
Pillar 2 is selecting the right Microsoft AI technologies, which, maps directly to their whole full-stack offering that we're about to get into.
Sure.
Third is establishing scalable data governance. And this isn't just about securing data. It's about classifying it by sensitivity, controlling access, and making sure everything is traceable. That's how you stop the AI from becoming a legal liability.
And the 4th pillar.
The 4th, which is essential today, is implementing robust, responsible AI practices. This means having controls to preserve trust, monitoring for bias, meeting all those new regulations. For a big company, skipping these steps means you can't scale AI without taking on just unacceptable risk.
So let's talk about how they deliver on that second pillar, the technology itself. Their offerings are deliberately designed to span 3 different consumption patterns: SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS.
Yeah, and this tiered approach is really about balancing speed, customization, and control. It lets them meet the customer wherever they are in terms of technical maturity or, their compliance needs.
This full spectrum offering, it really feels like the essence of their strategy to become the one indispensable platform.
It is. They're not asking you to change your entire infrastructure. They're meeting you on the complexity spectrum.
So let's start at the top, the highest level of abstraction. That would be SaaS, or software as a service, the productivity layer.
This is the easiest entry point. It's the user-facing acceleration layer, and it's basically all of the copilots.
The flagship being Microsoft 365 Copilot.
Right. And what makes it so powerful is its integration with the customer's own internal data through the Microsoft Graph. We're talking about billions of emails, meetings, documents, all that stuff stored in the organization's cloud.
So it's not just a generic chatbot. It knows your company's context.
Exactly. It offers assistance right inside the apps you already use. Like in PowerPoint, it can draft a presentation based on a recent email thread, or in Outlook, it can summarize a really dense exchange for you.
So it turns the organization's private data into immediate, actionable AI help.
That's the idea. And beyond the general 365 Copilot, they have role-based copilots. These are specific, ready-to-use solutions tuned for, say, security analysts or sales teams. They're designed for immediate acceleration with minimal setup. It's productivity out of the box.
Okay, so moving down the stack, we hit that middle layer, PaaS, or platform as a service. This is where the real customization starts.
PaaS is the engine room for serious development teams. It's where you go to build your own custom solutions without getting bogged down managing the raw server hardware.
And Microsoft is trying to unify this experience under a platform called Foundry.
Right. Foundry is designed to be the single platform for developing sophisticated stuff, like retrieval augmented generation or RAG applications, building complex AI agents, and fine-tuning foundation models with your own data.
And I assume this is where their big competitive advantage comes in, with exclusive access to certain models.
That's the core of it. The Azure OpenAI service is integrated right here. It gives enterprises scalable, secure, and governed access to frontier models like GPT-4o and DALAE.
So the value proposition is that your developers can focus on the business logic, what makes their product unique.
Right, while Azure handles all the monumental tasks of infrastructure management, security, governance. For a big enterprise that needs guaranteed uptime and compliance, PaaS is kind of the sweet spot.
And finally, for the organizations that need absolute control, the ones with really specialized models or intense optimization needs, there's IaaS, infrastructure as a service.
This is the specialization layer. It's for the most technically demanding customers. These are the folks who have to bring your own models, or use custom runtimes, or need to squeeze every last drop of performance and cost savings out of the hardware.
So you're basically just renting the raw computing power, the GPUs.
Exactly. You're renting it through Azure Virtual Machines for custom model training, or you're using Azure Kubernetes Service for highly scalable container orchestration. You choose IaaS when you need maximum isolation, or when your compliance requirements demand total control.
So whether you want an off-the-shelf Copilot, a custom solution, or you want to train your own model from scratch, they have a path for you. And looking ahead, the sources really highlighted a big shift, a move from these relatively static RG applications to more dynamic AI agents.
Yeah, this shift is a major evolutionary leap. RG is great for finding and summarizing existing knowledge. But an AI agent that's conceptualized as a microservice that uses a model not just to retrieve data, but to reason, act, and learn over time.
So they can actually initiate actions, monitor processes?
And adapt to changing conditions, all within defined parameters, of course.
How is Microsoft making that transition possible for its enterprise customers? It sounds incredibly complex.
By lowering the barrier to entry. They're making agent creation accessible to business users, not just hardcore engineers, through a tool called Copilot Studio.
A low-code platform.
Exactly. It's described as a low-code platform that lets employees build these sophisticated agents and automation workflows just using natural language prompts. The goal is to democratize it.
And are people actually using it?
The adoption numbers are pretty wild. In a recent 3-month period, over 160,000 organizations created more than 400,000 custom agents. That scale suggests agents are moving very quickly from just an academic concept to a core enterprise tool.
But none of this scale is possible or safe without that final piece you mentioned, the data and governance mandate.
Absolutely not. Their data strategy is rightly called the control plane for scalable, trustworthy AI. It has to define how data is sourced, classified, secured.
You mentioned Microsoft Purview as a key tool here. It sounds like an auditor for the whole AI system.
That's a perfect analogy. They use Purview data lineage to track exactly where every piece of data came from and how it was used by the model. And they have something called Purview Data Security Posture Management, or DSPM, that acts as an active watchdog for these generative AI apps.
And this is where the responsible AI part becomes operational, not just a document someone wrote.
Precisely. They emphasize treating bias evaluation using their responsible AI dashboard as a recurring control. It's not a one-time thing you do before launch. It's continuous monitoring throughout the AI lifecycle. For a big company, that rigorous process is what allows them to adopt the tech without risking catastrophic legal or reputational damage.
That full stack vision is immense, but it demands an equally colossal commitment. And this is where we really get into the cost of this all-in bet. It starts right at the top with Nadella.
It really does. The restructuring of his senior leadership team was profound. I mean, his internal documents called it one of the most significant transformations in Microsoft's entire 50-year history.
He has 16 executives reporting directly to him now.
16. That level of direct reporting, it just signals absolute strategic priority and control from the CEO's office. This is his mission.
So what were the key personnel moves that really cemented this AI-first focus? It looks like they were designed to clear Nadella's own plate for AI execution.
That was exactly the goal. At first, Judson Althoff was promoted to CEO of commercial business. He took over global sales, marketing, all commercial operations.
Which freed Nadella up.
Right? By entrusting all the commercial execution to Althoff, Nadella and his top engineering execs could focus squarely on the AI priorities. Long-term infrastructure planning, data center expansion, product innovation.
And then there was the big external hire.
Mustafa Suleyman, the co-founder of DeepMind, he was brought in as CEO of a brand new Microsoft AI division to oversee all the consumer-facing products, like the Copilots.
So a clear split. Althoff handles the enterprise money engine, Suleyman handles the consumer experience.
Exactly. And the third critical piece is the one who controls the money faucet, the infrastructure checkbook.
And that's Amy Hood, the CFO.
Yes, and her position is arguably the most central to this entire bet. She controls the allocation of these multi-billion-dollar AI investments, balancing the immediate costs against those projected future gains. Her decisions basically define the pace of this whole thing.
Okay, let's get to those numbers because they are just staggering. The infrastructure gamble, how aggressively are they scaling Azure?
Aggressive doesn't even begin to capture it. Microsoft is spending at a clip we've never seen before. In its most recent quarter, they reported record capital expenditures that hit $34.9 billion.
$35 billion
Yeah.
in one quarter.
To put that in perspective, they have doubled their total data center capacity in the last 3 years. And they added more capacity last year than in any other single year in their history. They're building for a future where every digital interaction requires AI compute.
That kind of spending has to put immediate, significant pressure on their profitability, even for a company the size of Microsoft.
It absolutely does, and the sources confirm it. You can see the pressure in the metrics. The Microsoft Cloud gross margin percentage actually decreased to 70%.
That's a 2-point drop.
A 2-point drop year over year. And management explicitly said that drop was driven directly by the cost of scaling their AI infrastructure. Now, a 70% gross margin is still fantastic, but the fact that a $3 trillion company is willing to sacrifice 2 points of margin highlights the gravity of this bet. It's the price of admission.
But there has to be some evidence it's translating to revenue, even this early. What does the AI payoff look like so far?
The AI-specific business is showing explosive growth, which validates the demand side of the equation. Microsoft's AI business has now surpassed an annual revenue run rate of $13 billion.
Wow.
Which is a 175% increase year over year.
Okay, so the demand is there, but the cost to meet it is almost unbelievable. This brings us to Nadella's core justification for all this, what he calls the compounding effect.
His entire thesis rests on this idea that AI scaling laws aren't linear. They're compounding. They're compounding across both pre-training and inference time compute. And that leads to these continuous, dramatic efficiency gains, which in his mind justifies building massive capacity now.
Can you break down those efficiency gains? It sounds like they're betting on software improvements, actually outpacing hardware improvements.
They are. Microsoft claims they're seeing 2 major efficiency tracks. First, they see a 2 times price performance gain for every new hardware generation.
Yeah.
That's kind of the standard Moore's law for GPUs.
Yeah.
But second, and this is the dramatic part, they claim to see more than 10 times the efficiency gain for every new model generation. And that's due to software optimizations focused purely on inference, just the cost of running the model.
10 times more efficient. That fundamentally changes the economics of the whole industry.
It does. The logic is if the cost to run the model is dropping exponentially, then demand for AI services will increase exponentially. If you can do 10 times more with the same dollar of compute today than you could a year ago, customers will naturally just consume 10 times more. So you have to have the infrastructure ready.
So the rationale is you have to continuously and aggressively scale your fungible fleet, your data center assets, to capitalize on that future demand.
Exactly. Nadella said, and this goes back to his core belief, when token prices fall, that means people can consume more, and there will be more apps written. And for Microsoft, that just means more demand for Azure. They believe AI ubiquity is inevitable, and by building the capacity today, they're ensuring they own the rails for that future.
Okay, now let's get to the real financial flashpoint, the OpenAI Paradox. The partnership is the crown jewel of their strategy, but the financial data around it is almost unbelievable.
It's a relationship defined by this incredible strategic value on one hand and just astronomical cost tension on the other.
On the strategic side, it drives huge bookings for Microsoft.
Huge. OpenAI made these new large Azure commitments, which drove Microsoft's overall commercial bookings up 67%. That's a massive signal of market confidence.
But the sources detailing OpenAI's own burn rate, they suggest a cost structure that just defies normal economics.
It really does. Internal documents we saw suggested that OpenAI spent an incredible $8.67 billion on inference alone with Microsoft Azure. And that was just through Q3 of calendar year 2025.
And inference, to be clear, is just the cost to run the models for user queries, not to train them.
Correct. Just running them. And that colossal cost had doubled from the previous year.
So let's put that in perspective. How does $8.67 billion in running costs compare to OpenAI's actual revenue?
And that's the paradox. Based on the revenue share payments Microsoft received, OpenAI's implied revenue for the first half of CY 2025 was about $2.27 billion, significantly lower than the $4.3 billion annual run rate figure that's been reported.
So the numbers strongly suggest that the cost just to run the models for customers is potentially higher than the revenue they're bringing in from those customers?
It certainly points in that direction.
That's a fundamental economic problem. But there are critical nuance here. Microsoft is intentionally subsidizing some of that cost as part of their investment deal.
That is the essential counterpoint. Microsoft openly says they sell Azure Compute to OpenAI for less than the total cost. So if anything, OpenAI's compute costs are artificially low.
And yet, even at those subsidized rates, the spending figures suggest costs are still higher than their implied revenue.
It's a very challenging dynamic.
So Microsoft is essentially buying market share and the future of the technology by being willing to absorb massive losses on the world's most powerful AI infrastructure.
That's the strategic conclusion. As one analyst in our sources noted, OpenAI is not making a gross profit. This is a key difference. Microsoft is absorbing the negative gross margins on AI compute in the short term to ensure that they are the primary, maybe the only, scaling partner for the most cutting-edge models.
They're investing in a highly leveraged relationship.
Exactly. Knowing that if AI is truly the defining platform, then this current negative margin will be seen as a trivial investment down the line.
And this intense financial pressure, this need to spend $35 billion while protecting the bottom line, it leads us to the core contradiction of this whole strategy, the layoffs and the enigma of success.
It's the perfect example of corporate calculus in action. In the same reporting period where Microsoft posted $27.2 billion in net income, a 24% increase, by the way, driven by AI, they also laid off around 9,000 employees.
It's an enigma, as Nadella himself called it, that a company with that much financial success would resort to mass layoffs. It suggests that the efficiency gains weren't just from AI growth.
That's the critical question. Management basically decided that scaling back the aggressive AI spending was not an option. So they chose to cut workers in other divisions to protect the funding for the AI infrastructure build-out. It's a zero-sum game internally.
It really speaks to the urgency they feel. This investment is more important than maintaining staff levels in non-core functions.
Absolutely. It shows Nadella's conviction. He feels he can't afford to slow down the capacity building, not even for a single quarter, because of those compounding gains he's betting on. The layoffs just underscore that the AI budget is sacred.
So we shift now from the stunning scale of the investment to the friction points in the market, because a massive CapEx spend only matters if the product actually sells. And the core of their monetization strategy is Microsoft 365 Copilot.
Right. But we have to talk about the price tag and the value proposition.
That price tag is the first and biggest hurdle for any CIO.
It is. Microsoft 365 Copilot costs $30 per user per month. And crucially, it's not bundled. It's a separate purchasing decision. You have to actively decide to pay that for every single employee you want to enable.
And in a big company with tens of thousands of employees, that $30 adds up exponentially. It creates immense pressure to justify the cost.
Exactly. And this leads to market skepticism. The feeling in some organizations is that, while Copilot is helpful, it drafts emails faster, summarizes documents, it's not yet an irreplaceable core application.
It's not Microsoft Excel.
It's not Excel, so the value proposition is harder to quantify. Business leaders need to show hard ROI, not just an anecdotal feeling of productivity, to justify $360 per employee per year.
And this resistance seems to be translating into real pipeline problems. Slower than expected enterprise demand in some key areas.
The evidence is pretty concrete. Sources indicated that Microsoft recently had to cut sales quotas for some of their Azure AI products because reps were struggling to hit these really ambitious growth targets.
And the friction was particularly noticeable around Foundry, their pays tool.
Yes, which raises a critical question. Is this just growing pains for a complex product? Or is it an early sign that AI adoption inside big companies is just fundamentally slower than the market narrative suggests? Foundry requires a real commitment of engineering resources, data governance, all those pillars we talked about.
If you don't have a clear, measurable use case, you're not going to invest heavily in the pays layer.
You're not.
So how did leadership explain this slowdown?
CFO Amy Hood attributed it to go-to-market execution challenges in their indirect sales channels. She basically noted the difficulty in asking the sales force to balance driving near-term revenue from existing products while also pushing these aggressive long-term AI growth goals.
So the sales team is struggling to execute the rapid pivot while also maintaining the massive baseline business.
That's a fair summary.
And beyond the sales floor, Microsoft's focus on scale, speed, and deep integration has created some significant backlash from users. Issues around rushed features and user trust.
This is a major headwind for adoption. The pace of releases has led to features that just feel experimental, not polished. The most notorious example was the recall feature for Windows.
Oh, right. The one that was designed to basically photograph your screen activity constantly.
Yes, offering a searchable memory of everything you've ever done in your PC. It was perceived as a massive security and privacy nightmare.
It certainly was.
And it had to be paused almost immediately after it was announced because of the widespread safety concerns. That kind of reversal really undermines user trust in their new AI offerings.
What other user experience issues are cropping up?
Well, users are citing slower performance, system instability, high background CPU usage. There have also been documented safety lapses, like Copilot Designer generating inappropriate images, or reports of manipulative AI responses.
And what about the issue of control? Enterprises need to manage deployment.
That's a key complaint. Some updates have been criticized for reducing user control, taking away customization options, and making AI features harder to disable. We even saw reports that some of their own engineers admitted that new Copilot updates ruined productivity.
So with all this cynicism and friction, how is the leadership reacting?
The reaction kind of highlights a disconnect between the engineering achievement and the user reality. Microsoft AI CEO Mustafa Suleyman said he was genuinely surprised. He said it cracks him up when I hear people call AI underwhelming.
He's seeing the technical marvel.
Exactly. He's emphasizing the miracle of a super smart AI. But the users are complaining about the weeds of instability and lack of control. This tension defines the current adoption challenge. Microsoft is pushing the frontier, but the enterprise market values reliability and control above all else.
And finally, we have to consider the open source challenge. If Microsoft is betting the farm on these exclusive, expensive models, what happens when high-quality, low-cost open source models get better and better?
It just accelerates the commoditization of AI. We saw this with the launch of DeepSeek's R1 model on Azure's catalog. It offers strong performance at dramatically lower cost. That challenges the premium pricing of the Azure OpenAI service.
But Nadella's stance is counterintuitive. He seems to welcome it.
He does. It goes back to his core belief in ubiquity. He argues that falling inference prices just mean people can consume more and write more apps. It makes AI ubiquitous.
The server analogy again.
Yeah. He said the big lesson from the cloud was that more people bought servers, except it was called cloud. He believes lower token costs won't hurt Microsoft. They'll drive broader adoption. And that broader adoption requires vast, sophisticated infrastructure for data storage, fine-tuning, governance. All services that only a hyperscaler like Microsoft can provide at scale. The infrastructure is the ultimate moat, no matter which model you use.
If the enterprise friction all boils down to that $30 price tag, then the conversation has to be about proving ROI. Business leaders need hard evidence to justify that cost.
This is the critical juncture for the entire bet. Employees might feel more productive, but without quantitative data on KPIs, AI is just a cost center. And Microsoft recognized this risk early. They built a dedicated framework, the Copilot control system, which includes Copilot analytics, specifically to quantify that potential.
So how does this analytics suite break down the measurement process for a company?
It's structured in 3 layers, which correlate to different tiers of organizational maturity. You can think of it like a fitness tracker for your AI adoption.
Okay, I like that analogy. So what's tier 1?
Tier 1 maturity is about the basics. It's tracked in operational reports for IT admins. This is like tracking if the fitness tracker is even turned on. The metrics are things like license utilization, enabled users versus active users, and basic usage by app. The goal is just ensuring licenses aren't being wasted.
So tier 1 is, are people even logging in? What about tier 2, the strategic layer?
Tier 2 uses strategic reports in the Copilot dashboard in Viva Insights. This is for business leaders. It's like tracking steps taken and calories burned. It moves beyond logins to track multi-app usage patterns and quantify value with 2 key metrics.
And what are those?
First, Copilot-assisted hours, the estimated time savings per employee. And second, and this is the one the CFO cares about, Copilot-assisted value in dollars. It's the time savings converted into projected money saved based on salaries.
In the most advanced tier, tier 3.
Tier 3 is strategic maturity. It requires deep integration and uses customized reports built in Power BI. This is where you combine the Copilot usage data with your external business systems, your CRM, your ERP, to prove direct correlation with core business outcomes.
So this whole pipeline is designed to move the conversation from just usage counts to directly impacting the metrics that executives already care about, the strategic KPIs.
Precisely. The core methodology is a report called the Copilot Business Impact Report. It's designed to compare performance between a high-usage group and a low-usage group against a set of predefined KPIs.
Give us some of those specific KPI examples. How does this work for different business functions?
For sales, the KPIs are direct and tied to revenue. Win rate, deal size, sales cycle length, revenue per seller.
Okay.
For customer service, you're tracking things like case resolution time and customer satisfaction scores. In HR, it might be employee engagement, time to onboard, or even attrition rates. It translates the value story into the exact language the CFO speaks.
And Microsoft wouldn't be pushing this if they hadn't used it on themselves. They ran a case study with their own massive sales team, MC-TPS. What did they find?
The results were designed to be definitive proof points. By tracking high Copilot users against their sales KPIs, they found a 22% increase in revenue per seller.
22%.
And a 15% increase in deals won for that same high-usage group. We also saw the overall sales pipeline increase after they hit daily usage among more than half of the sellers.
That is quantifiable ROI. That absolutely justifies the $30 price for a high-value employee like a senior seller. But I have to ask, is it possible the early adopters were just the most tech-savvy and successful sellers to begin with, a self-selection bias?
That's a valid criticism, and it's one every internal case study faces. But Microsoft counters by emphasizing the follow-on data. They found that the measurement tools themselves actively drive broader engagement. Organizations that use the Copilot dashboard increase their overall Copilot usage 2.1 times more than those who just bought licenses and did nothing.
So measurement drives adoption.
It creates a virtuous cycle that overcomes that initial skepticism and broadens adoption beyond just the tech-savvy early birds.
And this success in measurement leads to their ultimate long-term play. The future is the agent economy.
That's the next logical step. They're focused on making agent creation ubiquitous. They've made Copilot Studio available to every employee, and the goal is to make building an agent as simple as it is to create an Excel spreadsheet.
And this is all underpinned by what they call their rich data cloud.
Precisely. The billions of documents and chats in their ecosystem. That data cloud is their foundational moat. And by combining that moat with accessible agent creation tools, they plan to ensure the next phase of enterprise automation runs entirely on their platform.
So when we synthesize everything, Satya Nadella's commitment to AI isn't just a business strategy. He really sees it as the singular existential move to define Microsoft's future.
It is one of the most aggressive capital plays in tech history. He's willing to endure these immense immediate costs, the organizational chaos, the user friction, all to secure that compute capacity now. The core tension is massive. The $35 billion investment is necessary, but the high cost of running these models, that $8.7 billion inference burn rate, still seems to eclipse the revenue its closest partner is generating. The financial equilibrium is still a long way off.
So what does this all mean for you? You now have the full picture, the technical stack, the colossal costs, and the very real friction on the ground.
The essential takeaway is that Microsoft is operating under this intense urgency. They're sacrificing short-term margin and user goodwill to build an unassailable infrastructure moat. They believe the urgency of market dominance justifies the immediate financial losses because they are certain that cost curve will eventually bend.
Which leaves the ultimate question for you, the learner.
Right. Is this necessary phase, this unprecedented investment in raw compute capacity, truly the only way to reach a future where AI is so efficient and accessible that it becomes truly ubiquitous and critically affordable for everyone?
Keep learning and exploring the data. It's the only way to know where this massive AI bet ultimately lands. End of deep dive.